Am I good?
You're good.
All right. Well, welcome again to one of our Lunch and Learns, guys. I'm glad that you're all here. Today we have a very special guest, someone who's not only the usual inspector that I like, but he's also a personal friend. Marty Linick with Inspect It First and his whole team, when we do inspections, both commercial and residential, which he's going to talk to you about, he does some special things for our team, which we really enjoy, and it makes my job as a broker much easier. So that being said, Marty, I'm going to let you take it away.
Thanks, Linda. So today we're going to talk about team-based inspections. Just a quick agenda here. We're going to talk about residential commercial inspection standards in Arizona, some of the elements of a typical inspection, some of the approaches we use, and the benefits of using a team-based. And we'll leave some time for questions, and if you have questions during the session here, please just interrupt and we'll address your questions as we go. So in Arizona, we do require property inspectors to be licensed, but it only covers residential up to fourplexes. Anything above a fourplex, there are no state standards, there's no state licensure requirement. So it's really important to know what scope of work you're getting from an inspector if you're working in the fiveplex and up kind of category. And similar for commercial inspections, there's no standards. You go to some other states, they actually may have standards, they may have special licensure requirements. Nevada is an example of that. But in Arizona, it's strictly residential. And one of the things that I attached with your handouts do have copies of the state standard for home inspections. And for those of you viewing this on the web, if you would like to get a copy, shoot me an email and I'd be happy to mail one out to you or give you the link on the Bureau of Technical Registration website to look at those standards. One little side note here, pools and spas are also required to be inspected using a standard in Arizona, but that standard only covers single-family home residential. So if you are buying a complex that has a pool or multiple pools or spas, again, there's no formal state standard that an inspector would be required to follow. We typically follow the state standard for home pools when we do multifamily. There are some additional things that we look at because it is a semi-public or public category. So when you need to get an inspection done, there's a couple different ways of approaching it. Some clients are very knowledgeable, they want to do it themselves. Some have a team of contractors. Some might engage a home inspector, and some might engage a company like ours, which we consider ourselves property inspectors. These methodologies are all going to vary. There's combinations that are possible, but we're going to talk a little bit about the pros and cons of each of these approaches. So if you're the client, you're doing the walkthrough, you're typically going to rely on the seller's disclosure statement. And that's probably going to help focus you on areas to look at. The main question then becomes is, can you really trust your seller? That may or may not be an issue for you. I don't want to imply that sellers are dishonest, but you really probably want to think about getting an independent third party in there. But some of the pros and cons, as a client, you may have a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, that's great. You're probably going to do a walkthrough type inspection, and the other good thing is it's free as far as the cost of your time. That's really the only cost. Some of the cons, you may find things, but put yourself in the seller's shoes, they may not believe your findings because you're not an independent third party. You obviously have things that you're trying to accomplish during a negotiation. So, and then as far as reporting, sometimes what you see during your walkthrough, are you going to really take the time to convert that to a report that can be evaluated after the fact? The other thing you got to watch is if you're going to do more than just a walkthrough, are you carrying commercial general liability insurance? Because if you're taking things apart, turning things on and off, and you damage something, is the seller going to have recourse against you for causing some kind of damage? So these are the kind of things to think about if you're going to do it yourself. If you know contractors, and this is a very good method of doing it. Contractors are typically very knowledgeable. Most of the time they're free. The only things you got to watch is, again, independence. You know, we had one just the other day where a guy got off a roof. He was a licensed roofer, said the roof needed to be replaced. The people didn't believe the guy at that point. They called us in, and clearly the roof did not need to be replaced. It just needed to be repaired. And so you get into those kinds of issues. Sometimes it's hard to coordinate everybody if you're bringing in electricians and plumbers and roofers, and you know, there's a limited time frame, especially on a tenant occupied type property where you only have a limited time to get people in to look at things. So you, as the buyer, would be responsible for doing all of that coordination. And then the other thing is, a lot of times it's hard to get reports. You know, contractors are very good at giving you verbals, giving you the benefit of their experience, but frequently they don't really convert that into a written report. And then even then, they're only going to report on their area. That's not going to be an integrated type report. So one of the kind of the jokes in our industry is you go to any home inspector generic website, and there's going to be people selling commercial inspection training, because everybody thinks home inspectors immediately can become commercial inspectors and start making more money. That's the tagline. So a lot of guys are getting trained. Many of them don't have the experience to really do this, but they'll try to convince you that they do. And so I would really caution you, if you do go that route, make sure it's somebody that's been there or done that and has some experience in the commercial arena. A lot of times you'll find that they carry E&O because either the state would require it or they want to carry it on their own, but rarely is it at a level that would support the scale of a larger property. When you get up into anything above 50 units, you're into multi-million-dollar type properties, and if someone's carrying in Arizona a $30,000 bond, which is okay as far as the state's concerned, or $200,000 in E&O, that may not really protect you all that much. We carry $1 million in E&O, $1 million in commercial general liability. The other big thing is under the cost estimating heading, we're going to talk a little bit about this. We prepare what we call a statement of probable cost. A lot of home inspectors getting into the commercial arena do not offer that kind of estimating capability in support of the overall transaction. So here's what we do. We use a combination of area type inspecting and system type inspecting. Our staff includes a registered engineer, electricians, apartment maintenance technicians, people that have owned commercial laundries. So depending on the property and what systems are there, we wrap those people around those types of systems, in addition to doing area type inspections, which would be by unit. And this really gives a buyer a lot of knowledge, a lot of education about what it is they're buying. They get both just general cosmetic type things, as well as system level, system ages, system performance. And the other thing that we talked a little bit about it, but the statement of probable cost is really important, and the speed at which we can develop these things. Typically, up to a 200 unit complex, we can do the inspection in one day, and we get the report out the next day and the statement of probable cost the day after that. So literally the time from when we do the inspection to when you have all your documentation is 2 days. So obviously doing that approach can be very expensive unless you incorporate some method to reduce the inspection fee. And the way we've done this is really based on quite a few years of doing multifamily, where we started to see a correlation between the types of defects we would find. So rather than detail inspecting every unit, we actually use a formula where we detail inspect a certain percentage of the units, and then we overview inspect the balance of the units. We still enter every unit. We still record system ages of major pieces of equipment, your air conditioning, your water heaters, things like that. But we're not doing a detailed inspection of every unit. We rely on the statistical model to scale up defects, because what we found is in larger complexes, if you see the same defect in the number of units that you're doing your detailed inspections on, you're probably going to see them in all the units because it's the same maintenance people, the same ownership. The error will kind of repeat itself. So it works quite well. We have our fees here, you can see that. And then there are some other things that we will organize for you depending on the property. Termite inspections are very popular here, very needed, a lot of termite activity. And then also for older properties, we can get the sewer cam organized again around the schedule that we're at the property and bothering tenants and things like that. Quick snapshot of a typical statement of probable cost. This was a, if I remember right, like a 60-unit complex. It had a central air conditioning system. Some of the chillers were getting older, and so in addition to giving you pricing for immediate needs, we also look at a 5 and 10-year run out, so you can begin to budget a little bit for things that might be coming down the road as far as ownership. If you're a buyer that's going to buy it, hold it for a limited time and resell it quickly, some of those 5, 10-year things may not be important to you, but if you are going to buy and hold, then that becomes very important for you. So, quick summary of the benefits. A lot of knowledge, a lot of independence. We cover some of the liability, very quick turnaround times, excuse me, and it's very simple as a buyer for you to get all of this done. One call really gets this all in motion, and we get it all organized, coordinated with the listing side, and executed and get you your documentation so you can focus on some of the more important things. There's all kinds of issues with occupancy rates and rent rates, and we don't get into any of that, but we really free up that time so you can focus on those areas. So just a couple of examples. We did a 200-unit complex. We had 9 inspectors on that one, and took a 5-day lead time, and literally 1 day in the field. The report was out the next day. Statement of probable cost the day after that. So very quick turnaround. That particular client really just couldn't believe it. They bought multiple large complexes. They typically wait weeks to get information. 65 unit, we had 5 inspectors on that, plus some sewer cam, and that one was a relatively clean property. And then we do fourplexes too. I mean, it's not just big units. We typically in that case, we actually did that inspection in 1 hour in the field. We had 4 guys on it and literally knocked it out. And the issue on that one was it was more of an older tenant base, and they were kind of uptight about people being there, and so we really wanted to get in and get out. We wanted to minimize the disturbance, and the listing side was really complimentary to us on how quickly it was done and minimal impact. So a quick summary, kind of walk through the elements. We talked about standards, talked about some different methodologies, the pros and the cons and the benefits. I just wanted to open up the floor to any questions you might have. And actually, before we get to questions, one of the things that Linda asked me to cover that wasn't as a slide here, we also offer a type of inspection called an overview inspection. And it's very useful if you're buying a property on a fix and flip basis. And we generally do this more for homes. But if you're doing a fix and flip, we actually come in and do an overview inspection first to get you the information you need to really give to a contractor. And then the contractor can make repairs. And then we return to the property as a second step and pretty much check what they've done, complete the inspection, and at that point we issue the inspection report. So you get 2 reports. You kind of get a kind of an inspection report light up front that you can work with your contractor, decide what you want to repair, and then you get the formal state standard compliant report after the repairs are done. And really people find that second report looks way cleaner than the initial report. And so you can actually use that as part of your sales package. And the cost to do that kind of two-step inspection is 125% of the normal fee. So we basically figure up the inspection as you would just be doing a single visit, and we add 25% to that, and that covers both steps. Very, very useful to most people. Some people tell their contractor fix everything on the list. Some may omit certain things. They may not want a new roof, let's say, and that's perfectly fine. You don't have to do everything that we identify, but at least you know what it is going in. And we've even had a couple of cases that after we've done the first step, the buyer decided not to move forward with the transaction. Maybe there was polybutylene pipe that nobody knew about, and they pulled the plug on it, and so they had only invested 75%. We actually charged that 125% as 75% and then 50%. So if you walk away from the deal after the first inspection, you're only on the hook for the 75%. So it's a real effective way of doing that. And a little bit about us. This is all in your handouts. And that's our team, a couple of testimonials. And again, I'll open the floor to questions.
So you guys do mainly commercial stuff though, right?
We do a pretty good mix of residential and commercial. We try not to overweight in any one segment. We're typically a third homes, a third luxury homes, and a third commercial. That's really, on any given month, those percentages vary, but that's kind of our annual total. We've just found that if we overweight in any one segment, the Phoenix market is, this series of roller coasters typically, and we just, it's a way for us to load balance, keep our staff busy, so.
Okay. Yeah, because we're not at the commercial level yet. We're just trying to do some flipping on the houses.
Yep.
So my question for you is, suppose I find a deal, if I'm doing my initial walkthrough after I get some contact with the seller, what should I be looking for before I could even proceed to the next? What are the really big red flags that I need to look for before I go through with getting an inspector and making an offer and really, the next step?
I would say, really look at the disclosure document that the seller's providing you. If they're honest about that and there's good information in there, that's going to begin to uncover some major things that you'll want to know about going in. I already used the example of like polybutylene pipe, the aluminum wire, an old leaking roof. I mean, these are typically the big ticket things. These are, on a typical 15 to 2,000 square foot house, they're going to be $3,000 to $7,000 if you have to do them right out of the chute. And so you kind of know where the seller is with their asking price. You might guess where you could get them to. And obviously, if 2 or 3 of these other items are piled in there, the deal may not pencil out for you. So you can probably do just a general review, because they should be identifying things like polybutylene pipe. They're either going to say they have copper pipe, or they have CPVC pipe, or they have galvanized pipe. But a lot of times the disclosures will say, I don't know. I mean, they may have picked it up through the wholesale market. They, quote, never set foot in the house. They don't know what they got either. So that may not be as helpful. Now, if you're familiar, if you don't mind climbing around a little bit, you might be able to get into the house and look at that kind of thing in advance. So those are the kinds of things I would focus on. I will tell you though, many times we see things that look really bad that really don't cost a lot to fix. Sometimes truss repairs, if you poke your head up in an attic and you see 3 trusses broken in a row, that may be a costly fix. It may not be. It may be actually pretty simple to fix something like that. And so the seller may not know that. If you tell them, oh my gosh, you got 3 broken trusses, you may be able to negotiate a bigger cost reduction, but you may also know going in that the repairs aren't that costly. So that can cut 2 ways. So
Okay.
does that answer your question?
Well, I was hoping you just tell me like what Well,
You want our overview inspection checklist?
So that would be great too, yeah, something to look
We
at.
ain't gonna give you that.
Well, I'd probably get one after the first one, but I mean, just what to look for, like smells,
Oh, yeah.
discolorations. I'm really concerned about the pipes, that's gonna be expensive, the foundation's gonna be very expensive. Just in general, what to look for so I could know whether I go yes or no on this
Yep.
house, you know what I
Yep.
mean? Before you sink in all this money to do inspections and things like that.
Yeah, and you know, on a house like that, your investment for us going in, it's probably in the $300 range for a first step overview. And you know, at some point, you probably got to ask yourself, what's your time worth? You know,
Yeah.
if it takes you 2 hours, 3 hours to do something like that.
Right, I mean, I'm willing to pay the 300, that's not a problem.
Yeah.
To save 50,000, that's fine. But I just don't wanna waste my time in getting inspectors and everything in there, and then
Right.
when there's like obvious red flags, like your inspector comes out like, of course you're not gonna buy this, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, and in those kind of situations, a lot of times we'll get a call from someone who's at a place and they're taking a photo of something and texting it to us. And if it's a regular client, we'll respond to it.
Okay.
But the danger in that, and I'll just throw it out there as a danger, we actually don't know what the house is on the market for. I mean, we've had a house where a portion of the house was literally sliding down the hill. It had already moved 3/4 of an inch and it was continuing to move. And a lot of people would have said, oh my gosh, I'm walking, you know, I'm not gonna mess with that. The fix to it was only $12,000. And this particular client, knowing the cost, because we actually got a contractor quote for him, negotiated a $60,000. So, you know, it's the kind of thing where, you know, some of these red flags are opportunities. You know, I had another example. Imagine a conventional truss home. They actually took a garage and converted it to living space, but they wanted a vaulted ceiling for some reason. They cut out the interior cords. And so, you know, when we went in, we pointed out, we actually ran outside and told one of our guys to get off the roof because literally there was no intermediate support. And this particular client was going to walk, and we actually got them a price to repair it. The repair was only $4,000.
Oh, okay.
They had negotiated a $12,000 credit, and very simple repair. It actually involved metal rods with turnbuckles, and they did every third truss and basically plated it, and so they created a triangle, and it met the structural inspector's criteria. So they pocketed $8K on the differential. So it's always a little risky just saying, oh, this is so bad, run, you know, because it may be an opportunity for you.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Thank you,
Okay,
Ray.
thank you.
Thank you.